What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we are taking a look at the finals from last week's community gaming tournament. We've got BeeHappy here up against Desmond. Desmond's hand cam will load up in just a moment. It wasn't working at the start. This is pre-recorded. I know who wins this and what decks both of these players are playing, but I have not seen these games yet either. So this is also live commentary, and we can see that BeeHappy is rocking sort of an Affliction deck with US Agent, Man-Thing, Typhoid Mary, Valentina, and I assume we're going to see an Anti-Venom in this deck as well. And Desmond's hand cam just loaded up. We can see that they have Luke Cage in their deck. So this match is going to come down to having the tech for the tech potentially, as we see the Enchantress in BeeHappy's hand as a potential answer for Luke Cage, and then also Mobius, which is coming down this turn for Desmond to strand that Sasquatch in BeeHappy's hand. If they don't play it this turn, they could potentially play it this turn, but Typhoid Mary is just so much better on curve. And then next turn, you'd be able to play the Sasquatch plus the Lizard. So that is probably what we will see with this Mobius then making Sasquatch into a 6/8, and probably just won't be a card that BeeHappy plays from that point. But I do think that Luke Cage will also be a really huge problem card for BeeHappy, because their entire strategy revolves around, I won't say their entire strategy revolves around Affliction, because they do have the Enchantress and the Typhoid Mary and the Lizard as sort of one angle that they are going for, but it's at least going to take some of the wind out of the sails for US Agent and Man-Thing. Lady Deathstrike comes down this turn into the vault to blow up that US Agent and win the vault before it seals. And with a snap there from Desmond, that's a bit of a boomer snap, but that is going to get a retreat out of BeeHappy. They probably could have even snapped to just the Mobius, seeing what we see here on the screen, and Sera drawing that on the final turn is of course a pretty terrible time to draw that. But Sera also, just like, I'm assuming we're going to see an Anti-Venom. There's a lot of ways to cheat on energy with BeeHappy's deck, so I think that the Mobius is going to come in pretty big. Meanwhile, Desmond is also cheating on energy, but in a different way. They are playing a Wiccan deck. This is a deck that I've seen a lot of in the past week or so. Quicksilver into Domino into 3-cost card into Wiccan, and then able to play a bunch of tech on the final 2 turns of the game. A pretty fair game plan, I would say, across the board, but they haven't been able to get off the Wiccan with a good curve. Tinker's Workshop kind of throwing a wrench in it, and not drawing a 3-cost card is going to be ultimately what does them in here. They led with the Shadow King, probably one of the only 2-cost cards in the deck other than Domino, leading with that to hope to be able to fulfill the Wiccan. Not quite going to work in this scenario, but what is working for BeeHappy is Wakanda to protect their cards from Destroyer. Dark Dimension and Wakanda were pretty good Destroyer locations this game, and they get the Destroyer out just in time because Iron Lad hits Mobius, and that is going to make it so that, well, at least this Sera doesn't work in BeeHappy's hand. They're going to get stranded with the Sera, which would otherwise allow them to play 2 4-cost cards on the final turn, or some combination of like Mobius, Lizard, Typhoid Mary, or something. Instead, they're just going to drop the Typhoid Mary this turn, and then next turn we might see like Enchantress plus Lizard. We see Lady Deathstrike into Wakanda, and immediately a retreat there for Desmond. I think they were fishing for a Luke Cage of their own to get a surprising comeback there in Wakanda. They had already lost in Tinker's Workshop by a bunch of points, and so they didn't really want to mess around with that location, but they just didn't have it here. They couldn't mount a comeback up against the Destroyer. Desmond also had a weird curve in the first game as the Icebox increased the cost of Quicksilver, so that threw them off, but we'll see. It looks like they are going to be able to get a normal curve this game. Quicksilver, Domino, Cosmo, and then Wiccan, we will finally get to see that activate here. Quicksilver gonna go into the third location. They could have battled for Eternity range, but I think they didn't want to risk losing that location and then having a Quicksilver and a Rock there. That would have been too much junk to have to clean up later. Domino and Valentina are going to come down, and Odin comes off of Valentina. That's a really fun one because you can use Odin to re-trigger the Valentina. Works a little bit better with like Quicksilver in some of those old Loki decks. But Odin was actually the very first card that I ever got from a Valentina, and that was a lot of fun. We're going to see Agent Coulson come out from Desmond here. Also a pretty fun card, giving Absorbing Man and Claw, which could be some pretty high impact cards. We're going to see the Wiccan come down this turn, of course, and the US Agent in Eternity range alongside the Valentina probably means we won't see the Odin come out, because they'd have to play the Odin into the US Agent there, and then it is only, what, a 2-power Odin, so not super impactful there. We do see Wiccan come down to tie in Eternity range, and now we get to see a big play from Desmond, Absorbing Man to copy the Wiccan, plus they can play one of their 3-cost cards. I didn't actually catch which one they picked up. They might have picked up a Mobius. I think they did. If they're just slamming that down so quick and they're not playing, well, they don't have priority here to play a Cosmo into the compound. But if this is, yeah, it's a Mobius alongside that Absorbing Man, that is huge. As we take a look into BeeHappy's hand, they're actually going for Typhoid Mary this turn just to play around the potential Mobius, which I guess means Desmond doesn't even need to play it if it's just its presence is scaring off Sera and Anti-Venom here. They are ultimately going to go for the Mobius though, and then Absorbing Man to copy up on that Wiccan is going to give Desmond 10 energy for the final turn of this game. They're going to be able to drop Claw and Lady Deathstrike if that's what they want to do. Lady Deathstrike could be pretty big, but they also want to throw down Luke Cage. So it'll probably just be Luke Cage and then Lady Deathstrike into Eternity range is what it looks like immediately. That could blow up the US Agent, and we do see another Boomer Snap here from Desmond on the final turn. Will this one be able to take it to 4 cubes though? BeeHappy does not really have a great play without the energy cheat, which Mobius is just completely shutting down. They could play Luke Cage, and I think one of the tricky things here, yeah, they can play Shadow King and then they can play one other card. So that's not fantastic, but we do see that BeeHappy is currently winning in 2 locations, but we know that Desmond with 10 energy is going to be able to come back pretty easily, and BeeHappy is ultimately going to come to that same conclusion and just retreat for 1 cube rather than risking it for 4. Desmond's deck, I have found, is really good in Conquest mode, just because you play a bunch of random cards that might not be that good against whatever your opponent is doing in an individual game, but over the course of a match, you will find at least one opportunity to snap with a Luke Cage or snap with a Cosmo or an Alioth that just wins the game and gets you a whole bunch of cubes. And so playing all of these like very tailored specific cards, Cassandra Nova for the RSM decks, is typically going to allow you to come out on top just by playing enough tech that some of it will hit something. And something is about to happen in this game. Galactus from Valentina as both players clear out Vormir. Galactus is going to be a little bit tough though, and that mini lab is going to mean that Galactus really cannot find a home. Bar Sinister, just you wouldn't want to risk it. And then Cassandra Nova coming down in Vormir means that there is no home for Galactus to land. Unless you want to go for a final turn Galactus into Mini Lab, I guess we could see that, but still a bit of a long shot. Iron Lad hitting the Mobius once again is going to close out some lines here once more for BeeHappy, and we see a snap from Desmond. Enchantress, though, can come out for the Vormir, and there's not really another great location to throw this Mobius, so it does look like Enchantress could free up some stuff, but what does it really free up? It allows you to play a 0-cost, 0-power Lizard. That's not really that fantastic here either. Lizard looking like a 0-cost, or it's a 2-cost -4 power card. Pretty terrible all around here. Lady Deathstrike comes out from Desmond just for points, 7 points into Vormir, and then I missed what they went for. Oh, I remember now. That is going to be an Alioth, but I don't know which location it came into. Lizard into Bar Sinister. Now that they can play it for free, you never see Lizard come out into Bar Sinister, and the Alioth on the Luke Cage is going to make it so that they are filling that location with a bunch of 0-power Lizards, and the US Agent is also shrinking their own cards. That Luke Cage would have been huge, but without it, they are going to lose 2 locations and tie the 3rd location, which feels like a loss tying in Bar Sinister there. So now BeeHappy is down 4 cubes to Desmond's 9, and we can see the power of just having those game-breaking tech cards like Luke Cage and Alioth from Desmond's deck. We do see Quicksilver here, and we see Agent Coulson as a 3-cost card, so Desmond is going to have a Wiccan curve. And there's some cheap cards here for BeeHappy to be able to curve out here with early on in the game. Valentina, maybe some spicy stuff could come from that. We could find a Galactus. That would have been big, but Galactus would have met an Alioth in that previous game had BeeHappy just gone for that. Dr. Doom, actually a fantastic card. Losing 2 power on Dr. Doom so that you only have a 4/13 is still pretty fantastic. And Agent Coulson is going to be delayed because of Lemuria, and I said that we would see a Wiccan in this game. There's actually no Wiccan. I took that for granted. Maybe the Iron Lad could find a Wiccan. It's not going to find a Mobius. Mobius already in Desmond's hand. We will see the Anti-Venom come out this turn. We actually find a Warpath and a Professor X from the Coulson, and then I missed what the Iron Lad hit. Maybe I think it might have been a Shadow King. No, here's the Shadow King. Oh, okay, yeah, it was a Shadow King. Yeah, so a free Shadow King and a Snap. But we could see, yeah, the Mobius is still going to come out this turn. So we are going to see the Valentina card get dropped. Shadow King is not the highest impact card that Anti-Venom can hit. A little bit of unluckiness here for BeeHappy with these 2-cost, 0-cost cards here from Anti-Venom. And they are just trying to see what they want to play for this turn. Probably not going to run out the free Shadow King. They'll just play that next turn alongside an Enchantress or a Cassandra because it will cost 2. I guess they might just play the US Agent here then instead of that. So few different options, but BeeHappy with a pretty reasonable lead going into the final turn. That means that this Alioth is not going to do anything. We could see something like Cassandra Silver Surfer, actually, as Desmond has 3 other 3-cost cards with the Cassandra, Mobius, and Agent Coulson, though they're not going to be able to get enough points into Stark Tower, so they're really just battling for Camp Lehigh and Lemuria. And is this going to do it? What is the best? I mean, you got to stay in it here if you're Desmond because there's no reason to retreat. There's no more cubes to be won or lost. But it certainly does look like lost. Yeah, Typhoid Mary coming down into Camp Lehigh. BeeHappy just pretty confident in their 11-point lead in Stark Tower. And then the US Agent also going to provide some points to Lemuria as a one-sided Affliction ability. Cassandra, not going to be enough. Cassandra on the final turn for 3, make that 5 with Silver Surfer, but a loss of all 3 locations. And now we're pretty close to tied up here. 4 cubes to 5. For BeeHappy to Desmond's 5 here. That's a pretty good comeback. And you do have to, like, a Luke Cage, I think, still would have been big in that moment. But And we also saw no Wiccan from Desmond. So I think when these decks are operating on all cylinders, Desmond's deck is a little bit favored to take it over the top. Morag is the first location, and then Titan, which Desmond is going to snap on. Snap on Titan. You have Alioth. Your opponent doesn't really have any 6-cost cards in their deck, at least. Valentina can generate some 3-cost, 6-cost cards then, which is a pretty good curve. But BeeHappy does not have it, and we are in high stakes mode, so BeeHappy is going to retreat for 2 rather than making this the final game. And Desmond did not really have that great of a hand there, so the snap I think is quite interesting, and we just see a lot of power of like an aggressive snap from what looked to me to not even be that great of a position. But finally, the Zabu from BeeHappy, I was wondering if they played it because all of the cards in their deck are 4-cost. We've got Typhoid Mary, Enchantress, Anti-Venom, and at least one more, but we have not seen the Zabu this entire match that's finally going to come out here for BeeHappy. Desmond also has the turn 4 Wiccan, and the Luke Cage. So I gotta feel like Desmond is in a reasonable position, but we do see the Enchantress from BeeHappy as well. So this one really could go either way. Sasquatch, again, the Valentina card. That's going to curve out nicely as a 3-cost, 6-cost card. It's like Titans here, but now we get to throw that into Kiln right before it closes. Luke Cage, also somewhat reasonable in Kiln before it closes. That gives your opponent a limited window in which they can play their Enchantress there. And now BeeHappy has to make a tricky decision. Do they want to turn off that Luke Cage before like a Cosmo can come down? We are going to see the Wiccan come out from Desmond, not into Kiln. They are just totally dodging Kiln here. Going to let BeeHappy win that 15-0. And then Desmond is going to battle for both of these other 2 locations. Oh wait, the Kiln is moving. The Kiln, that is absolutely brutal. Kiln, Starlight Citadel now made it so that Luke Cage is protected in the Kiln. Not only now does Desmond win that location, but now BeeHappy is going to have a tricky time winning in Starlight Citadel with Luke Cage now just totally protected behind the safety of the Kiln. We're going to see Alioth get dropped into Starlight Citadel this turn. It's actually a good Alioth here for BeeHappy, getting a free removal of those Typhoid Mary abilities. And now it is just up to Desmond to play a Cosmo to protect their Alioth with already a pretty sizable lead this turn. BeeHappy does not have to worry about Alioth, but they can't drop that much power. They're only dropping 8 power here, which is enough to win Starlight Citadel by 1. And despite Desmond's pretty lackluster final turn of the game, I do think that Cosmo is just going to lock it up. And we also see a Lady Deathstrike Iron Lad. That's not going to do much, but it is going to secure the victory for Desmond as the winner of this event. That's going to be it for me today, guys. But if you want to see more with Desmond's Wiccan deck, I've actually been playing this deck the past week, and I've made a few changes to the list that we saw Desmond run in this video, but I think it's really, really good for Conquest mode specifically. So I'm gonna have another video coming out on this deck in the next day or 2. So subscribe and stay tuned for that. But for today, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.